This module will talk about some of the basic issues you will encounter in taking care of your classroom and your laboratory. First of all, we live in an age of public accountability for tax dollars, and so there are public pressures that are placed on educational institutions to keep good care of the funds that they are given. And we also have, in this electronic age, very easy ways to find out where dollars have been misused and misspent. And so you put those things together with the fact that a lot of our career tech programs have very specialized equipment. We're buying supplies all the time. We might be providing services for the public. It opens our programs up to a special kind of scrutiny that maybe your academic colleagues don't have to worry about. Our programs are also more expensive than a lot of other programs, and so there's a lot more money coming in, going out, major purchases of equipment in the tens of thousands of dollars, those sorts of things. Some of you run customer service programs, you have a cosmetology lab, or you have a restaurant or an automotive service program where you have customers coming in from the public and they're paying you for your services, and so you're taking in funds and that money is going somewhere into an account. So you have other issues that maybe your academic teacher colleagues don't have to worry about. So you have a lot of different things to worry about with accountability for dollars. You have also a lot of very basic responsibilities related to keeping care of the classroom and the laboratory. You have tools and equipment. You have specialized items, some of which are very expensive, very delicate, and most of the time you're responsible for keeping care of that, making sure it's working so that the students can use it. And most importantly, making sure that everything is working safely and correctly so we avoid accidents and injuries. With respect to tools, we have in our career tech programs lots of different ones, the very simple tools, hand tools, to very delicate electronic testing equipment. We have to figure out ways to keep track of them and keep them safe and keep them from disappearing. That's a sad fact, is that some things that are attractive to students can disappear, and you as the teacher are responsible for keeping care, making sure that everything gets put back. You're entrusted with those tax dollars that paid for that equipment. So there are certain things that you can do, and that is making sure that there's a tool location, whether it's a tool crib or a closet or what have you, to keep all of these pieces of equipment and tools, making sure that things are marked and labeled. And some of you have student toolkits that maybe the school has purchased or the students that have purchased themselves, so we need to make sure that those stay safe as well. As far as distributing tools, there are a couple of different methods. One of them is just simply the honor system, where you let students go in, get what they need, and hope that it comes back. That may work for you, it may not. Depends on the students you have, depends on the type of tools and equipment that you have. This system may not work for you. Another system would be where you set up some sort of exchange where the students have a coin or a token that's given to them, and each day they exchange that coin for a piece of equipment or a tool. And then at the end of the day, they give that tool or piece of equipment back and they get their coin back. If you have a piece of equipment that is out and doesn't come back, you can easily then track it back to that token or that coin and find out, well, which student took that out, and go see them and say, why doesn't this come back? So that's one very simple way of doing things. You can involve students in this process by putting one student in charge of that process and making sure that they are keeping records of who took out what and who brought back what. And that also takes some of the load off of you. It's something you don't have to worry about doing every single day, checking out equipment. On one of the other modules we talked about supplies, And this is also a big responsibility because they're very expensive. And if you're using a lot of different supplies, it can run into hundreds or thousands of dollars. And so you do have to have a system for doling those out, and you do have to make sure that the students are using them correctly. I remember when I taught graphic arts, we used to use an awful lot of shop towels, and the students would clean the presses and take one swipe with the shop towel and then throw it in the trash. And I had to show them, you know what, there's another side to that towel. There's there are two sides to this towel. We need to make them last because they're expensive. And so you're going through lots of different supplies that can add up, and your administrator is going to ask you what's going on. You only have 12 students in your program, and you're going through cases and cases of these products. So you need to make sure that they're efficient users of the supplies that you have. Instructional supply inventory. Keeping track of those supplies and making sure you don't run out. Making sure that you have sufficient amounts of different things. Teachers will sometimes want to stockpile items and buy way more than they actually need. I've seen this happen before. In my own teaching experience, I walked into a high school when I was a middle school teacher and saw cases and cases of safety glasses in the high school. And I know that in the middle school where I was teaching, I had 12 very scratched up safety glasses. And I just couldn't understand how this other teacher at the high school had managed to appropriate several hundred pairs of safety glasses that weren't being used. And I was down the street at the middle school and didn't have any. So I think that points out that schools need to make sure there's an effective system for keeping track of the supplies and directing them to where they're needed. If you work in a career center, sometimes you're going to have a night program that comes in, and it's adults, and those supplies are supposed to be kept separate, but in reality that doesn't always happen. That there's a lot of sharing that goes on, and you might walk in the next day and realize, gee whiz, that box of supplies is gone. What happened to it? Well, the adult night program used it. And so you have to have those conversations with your supervisor and maybe that adult instructor and that adult supervisor to make sure that things run smoothly. So we just need to make sure there are systems that control waste and also control things disappearing. Because again, we're talking about accountability for public dollars. There are different ways you can require students to purchase supplies. Most career centers have a person that's in charge of the supply inventory, and if you're requiring students to buy things, they work through this person. That's a benefit for you because you don't have to worry about taking in cash and checks and that sort of thing. The school district's got somebody who's bonded to deal with that, and so they can a lot of times there are school stores where students can buy things. So there are different setups that are out there to make sure that students have the supplies that they need. And as a new career tech teacher, you need to find out what that system is. Customer service, I almost forgot. Many of you have customer service programs where if you're a culinary arts teacher, you're going to be running the school restaurant. If you're a career or an auto tech teacher, you're going to be running maybe customer service with your senior class to do basic auto repairs. If you're a cosmetology instructor, you might be running a cosmetology lab with your seniors where people from the public can come in and have services done. Many times the school districts will set up what's called a rotary or a rotating account where whatever funds that are taken in are automatically put back into this fund to pay for the supplies that are used as part of the customer service. So there's a couple examples there in this slide that talk about that. The idea is we're going to keep that money separate, keep those funds separate from the regular instructional supply monies that come in from the state and the local taxes. In reality it's a struggle for career tech teachers to keep those pots of money and those pots of supplies separate. So again, that's a conversation to have with your supervisor about how you might best do that. I know it was always difficult for me to keep track of, well, which pot of supplies over here was paid for by the Rotary account and which was paid for by the instructional accounts. I already mentioned making sure that you're not taking in money yourself. If students have lab fees to pay or they are buying supplies, they need to be doing that with a secretary or the school business person. Somebody else. You don't want to get into a point where you're stashing checks and cash in your drawer, your desk drawer, office drawer. It's a liability for you. If that money disappears, you're not bonded and insured by the school district to take care of that. So I think you want to avoid that at all costs, and make sure that if students are paying the fees and paying for supplies, it's going through a defined channel that's set up exclusively by the school district. Those are just a few issues related to supplies and equipment and tools in your Career Tech lab.